My name is Arthur Hemlock. This is a fragment from the casing of a failed R-7 rocket engine. A Soviet engineer, a man who risked everything, gave it to me in a smoky pub in the Arbat district. He called it a souvenir from a stubborn failure. I've kept it for over 60 years. It reminds me that history isn't written by the victors. It's written by the persistent, by those who are willing to fail 1,000 times in the dark, just to succeed once in the light. I remember a time when the night sky was not just a blanket of distant lights, but a canvas for our greatest dreams. We were a species bound to the earth, looking up, always wondering. The moon, it wasn't a rock in the sky, it was a promise, a silent challenge. And in my lifetime, I watched as humanity decided to answer that challenge. This is not a story about politics or nations. It's a story about a dream that lifted us all. Moscow in '57 had a particular kind of silence. It wasn't peaceful, it was heavy. The silence of a nation holding its breath. Everyone knew the leaders were whispering about something big, something for the history books. The West thought it was about bigger bombs or more tanks. They were wrong. They were looking at the ground, while the whispers were aimed at the heavens. I was a young foreign correspondent then, barely 29, one of a handful of Western journalists allowed in Moscow. My job was to report on the Soviet reality. But the reality was a puzzle. On the streets, you saw a nation still healing from the Great War. Scars were everywhere, not just on the buildings, but in people's eyes. Yet, underneath it all, there was this electric current, a ferocious, almost desperate national pride. My official government contact, a man named Dmitri, was a master of saying nothing. But sometimes, after a few too many vodkas, the mask would slip. I once asked him why they poured so many resources into frivolous projects when people were still struggling. He grabbed my arm, his eyes blazing with an intensity I'll never forget. He said, "Arthur, you don't understand. After the war, the world saw us as brutes, strong, yes, but primitive. They think we are just bears in the snow. We are not building a machine. We are building a new reputation. We will show them that a Russian mind can touch the cosmos." And so they worked, in total secrecy. We heard rumors, of course. whispers of massive explosions from a place deep in the Kazakh steppe called Baikonur. The official story was always industrial accidents, but we knew they were failing spectacularly, and with every failure, the West grew more complacent. American magazines were filled with illustrations of their sleek, sophisticated Vanguard satellite. It was a race, but only one side seemed to be running, or so we thought. The night of October 4th was cold and clear. I was at a diplomatic reception at the British Embassy. The mood was smug. The talk was of American ingenuity. Then an aide rushed in and whispered something to the ambassador. The man's face went pale. A moment later, the news spread through the room like a virus. TASS has made an announcement. They've done it. They've launched a satellite. I left immediately. The streets of Moscow were quiet, but it was a different quiet now. It was the silence of shock. I went to a public square. People were gathering, pointing at the sky, their faces a mixture of confusion, pride, and awe. And then we saw it. A tiny, steady light moving faster than any star. It wasn't majestic. It was clinical, unforgiving, a point of light that redrew the map of power in the world. And from a small, crackling radio someone had brought, we heard it. Beep, beep, beep. It was the sound of a whisper becoming a scream. I saw Dmitri a week later. The change was profound. He walked taller. The desperation was gone, replaced by an unshakable confidence. He didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't have to. The sky was saying it for him every 96 minutes. The lesson from that cold Moscow night is one I carry with me always. Pride is loud, but persistence is quiet. Ambition makes promises, but failure does the work. The world celebrates the final, polished result, but forgets the thousands of secret, stubborn, heartbreaking attempts that made it possible. They forget the fragments of failed engines. So, whatever your Sputnik is, your project, your dream, your ambition, do not be afraid of the silence. Do not be ashamed of your failures in the dark. For it is in that darkness, in that stubborn refusal to quit, that you build the engine that will one day carry you to the stars. And the sound of your success, when it finally comes, will be heard by the entire world.